we are.
Good evening, everybody.
It's so far away. So I have to count us in. If you hear us before we go live, I have to count us in. And the numbers turn red and I can't see them. I'm too old now to see them.
She's like squinting forward. Yeah. I'm like, more carrots. Try more carrots.
I hate carrots.
How are you, boo?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous.
Yes.
Had a great day. Yeah.
I'm still trying to transition into summer swim.
Yeah. How's that going?
So I spend most of my life somewhat like a Transylvanian vampire.
Yeah. I know.
And so summer hits and suddenly I have to spend 3 hours outdoors in the sun, poolside in the morning. And it's a lot. I'm getting burned. I'm a little red. I'm a little toasty.
What kind of sunblock are you using?
Nature.
No. You need to use Sunbum. I want you to use that. You can get it at Target. It's very good for you. It doesn't have a lot of the chemicals and the sun pesticides or whatever they're called.
The sunicides?
Yeah, the sunicides. There it is.
Oh.
Hey, we have a fabulous guest in studio.
We do.
I'm really, really excited to talk about the Ximenez-Fatio House. No, it's a wonderful world and a great museum. It's historic in our town. And I'm really excited to introduce you to this story. So this will be a lot of fun tonight.
They do amazing presentations there. I love it.
Yes.
Yes.
But first, lady.
Yes.
We got to get paid, boo.
All right. You to me, back to you.
All right. Here we
Let's
go. South State Bank. The team at South State Bank is a group of bankers you can count on. Their approach to building long-term relationships with their customers is the best in the business. If you're looking for a banking relationship that you can depend on, check on South State Bank. They've got 3 locations to serve you: St. Augustine, State Road 312, State Road 16, and the beach, baby. Visit their website, southstatebank.com. Member FDIC.
Yes, sir. And if you don't have dinner plans yet, join the Tringali family for dinner. You got 2 options. Carmelo's Pizzeria. They are locally owned and operated. They were voted best pizza 9 years in a row. They've got New York-style brick oven pizza, but also they serve salad, subs, wings, and more. Or you can go to the 123 Burger House. They were voted best burger 3 years running. Burgers, chicken wings, salads, authentic wood-fired pizza, ice cream, and both restaurants offer dine-in, takeout, or delivery through Bite Squad and Grubhub. Join the Tringali family for dinner. They would love to see you.
They really have the best wings in the world.
They have fantastic wings. Powell Heating and Air Conditioning, they're dedicated to making sure you are comfortable and cozy in your house.
We're not fans of being left in a hot and humid situation in this town.
I know. 3 hours every day with no AC. What am I doing to myself?
What are you doing to yourself?
Sweating so much.
God.
I need Powell Heating and Air Conditioning at the pool. So they've been locally owned business for 39 years. Everything they do is about making you more comfortable and confident about the care and service you receive from Powell. From the moment they answer your call until the time they leave your home, they are working to make you comfortable and confident about the work that they do for you. They have a fleet of 10 plus trucks, a 15,000 square foot warehouse stocked with parts and equipment. They are ready to serve you around the clock. They service all heating and air conditioning brands, and their emergency service is always open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, including nights, weekends, and holidays.
You know what I want to get you?
What?
I want you to get one. It's like one of these like neck air conditioner moments. They're not cheap though, so Mike Davis might have to pay for it.
Maybe a sponsorship.
Yeah, we'll put it on the budget. We make payments, Mike. We make small payments.
Or leave the credit card, and
it's
we'll
like
let you know.
$300, but it's amazing. Yeah, so like you could be like that mom out there, like shh.
Oh, I would love to be the bougie mom.
I love that moment for you. And I love our friends over at the Epic Behavioral Healthcare. For over 50 years, Epic has been the beacon of hope for our community, providing compassionate care for those touched by substance abuse or mental health disorders. Whether you're a kid, teen, adult, couple, or family, Epic is here to lend a helping hand. With a range of programs tailored to meet your diverse needs, Epic offers accessible solutions for everyone. They're amazing. And I know so many success stories in town through this program. We are very, very lucky to have Epic Behavioral Healthcare in the gamut of support, the continuum of care in our community.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be talking to Teresa next week. I'm very excited. Development director. She's got a lot of really cool things. They do a lot of great events like the Taste of St. Augustine. They also have the Flower and Garden Expo and Ancient City Kids Day. So check out all the wonderful things. I know that they love volunteers. Go to Epic Behavioral Healthcare on all socials.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So happy that they joined us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so happy that Emily Ward is joining us this evening.
Absolutely. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Glad to be back.
Yes. So happy to have you back in studio. So Emily, tell Amanda and our viewers tonight a little bit about your incredible journey about being a tour guide.
Okay, so it's funny because I feel like I say this a lot, but I realize most people haven't heard it before.
I love this story.
But I did not know what I wanted to do when I went to college. I knew I wanted to go to Flagler, eventually made that decision. Over the summer, decided I wanted to change my major or what I was doing, but I didn't know what to pick. I originally had declared psychology, talked to my admissions counselor, said where my interests were in history, but I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. Oh, I like hospitality, but I don't really know if that's it for me. And he had told me about public history, which was something I hadn't heard of. Basically sent me, it was like a little sheet that was like, people who major in this typically go into these jobs.
Okay.
See if that seems interesting to you. And I said, those do seem interesting. So I went with public history, started taking classes, realized the idea of giving tours sounded interesting. I saw people doing the admissions tours at Flagler, so I ended up starting to do those. And then eventually it came around to the point in time where I was going to need to do an internship. And the thing that was the struggle for me really was at the point where I was kind of in my junior year of college, COVID had just happened and a lot of places weren't taking in-person interns.
Yeah.
And I knew for me, I really wanted an in-person internship. I didn't want to do a digital internship. And I had heard of the Ximenez-Fatio House because at the time, the director there was a professor of mine and another student in class was doing an internship there. And I had actually gone to the museum to do community service at the museum for that.
Ooh, nice foot in the door there. That was smart.
So I was part of the History Honor Society at Flagler, and we had to do community service each semester. And they had mentioned at the museum needing something, so we went and did some cleaning, did some volunteer work for extra credit for class. So did that as well. And I had seen the other student who was there doing her internship, and she was working on the Servants Hall exhibit on the 3rd floor. And I was like, wow, that's really cool that she's going to be able to walk away and go back to that room and be like, I helped make this happen.
Yeah.
And so I was really intrigued by that. So I started there as an intern, and part of being an intern there and also working part-time, which is what I did, was giving tours. And I thought, oh, that's cool because I like giving the tours of Flagler. So then started
you did
doing
the tours at Flagler too?
So not the legacy tours, but the admissions tours.
They're pretty amazing.
Yeah, so for prospective students, I did those tours. So that was my first experience with giving tours. And then at the museum, that was kind of just a different level of it. And then did a couple other internships around town. I was at the Castillo and the Lighthouse, and I realized I just really liked talking to people about history, but I also really liked being in a place where I could be outside and inside. I liked that I could get fresh air, but if it was a really hot day and I needed to sit at my computer or something, I could do that also.
So the boxes are checking for you here. I'm loving this journey.
So the boxes were checking, and it was really great because I think with the Ximenez-Fatio House, it was just timing worked out really well for me where I was able to work part-time. And then probably a year after I graduated college, someone who was in a full-time position was leaving. So then I was able to take her full-time position, which funny enough, that was the intern I observed who inspired me to do an internship there.
That's perfect.
So like a very, very full circle. And then here I was this past semester, I actually supervised a Flagler intern. And then we ended up hiring her to work for us part-time over the summer. So I really got to see that full circle moment. So that was actually really exciting for me.
That's cool.
So yeah, it just continued to work out so well. And timing has really been a really big part of that it's worked out for me. So yeah, it's been great.
I love it. I love that. I love
Timing is everything.
Yes, absolutely. So the museum has such a rich history. Can you dive into a little bit here? Like someone that's watching right now that may not know anything about it. Can you just give us a little what's your elevator speech?
Yeah, so for anyone who knows nothing about the museum, we're located downtown St. Augustine. We're off of Avalace Street, which is the oldest platted street in the continental United States. And our museum for the majority of its period was a boarding house. It was originally built by a Spanish merchant named Andres Ximenez. He was using this space to run a couple businesses out of the downstairs, and then his family lived upstairs. But after he died and Florida went from being a Spanish territory to an American territory, a woman had purchased the property and converted it into a boarding house. And then throughout the 1800s, the boarding house was run by 3 single women consecutively, which we do pride ourselves on our women's history because it was pretty rare in that time period that women owned their own business. And then it was back in 1939, the colonial dames purchased the property, turned it into a museum in the 40s, and then we've been a museum ever since.
It couldn't have been that easy though for those women to have a business back then. Did they struggle? Did they have any kind of like turmoil with any of that?
I'm sure there were some difficulties. I know with Margaret Cook, the first owner, she had done a lot of business with her second husband, and she was actually listed as a sole and separate proprietor in certain deals. So I think she had business experience going into it. And I know, at least for Ximenez-Fatio, who's the fourth owner of the house, she had previously managed other boarding houses and such before. So I guess they had some of that experience. And at least for me, I've not heard of stories of there being like huge issues with them being the ones running a business or anything like that. But I'm sure on a daily, there was probably some level of maybe struggle of respect from certain individuals for what they were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Such a great journey. I mean, have you been to the museum? Have you ever been to
Yes. So we've been there. We actually rent your parking lot on Sundays.
Oh, great.
Church does, yeah. And so I've been in the parking lot a great deal.
Yeah.
But one of my friends at our homeschool organization, her mother was one of the lead presenters for and we lived here also.
Oh, Charmin?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we went there as part of our homeschool field trip. So it was fantastic.
We've had a couple of Charmin's daughter. She's brought a couple of homeschool groups to the museum for that. So that's been great.
So being a historian, I'm sure you're connected to, you get like kind of attached to some of these characters of time. Is there one that maybe like an owner of the museum, or is there one specific person that you've studied that you're like, I really identify with that person?
I would say for me, and it's funny because someone asked me a very similar question recently, and I said, I don't know that I could go back necessarily and say there's exactly one person that I relate to for, I guess, like a very specific reason. I would say as a whole, I probably, obviously the women owning the boarding house, I definitely relate to wanting some sort of ownership or success or like business of my own or something like that. And I can imagine the struggles in that. So I feel like I kind of relate to that as a whole, is that maybe being a desire for someone. And then I also think the thing that's so unique with our boarding house, where it's hard to pinpoint like one person here or there, is we span 226 years of history. And we're in the Spanish period, the American period. We have 4 different owners and their families. We have all these different enslaved individuals who are in the house, all the different guests who visited. So we have so many different types of people that were there for so many different reasons and had so many different experiences, that I think for me, I've never found myself in a position where I really identified specifically with one person's story. But I think what I found so cool is being able to talk about so many different types of people and look at so many different types of stories. I found that it's definitely helped me grow maybe my open-mindedness.
Okay.
And has helped me be able, even like in present day, to work on seeing things from another perspective or put myself in someone else's shoes. Because so much of what we're doing, we're interpreting history, we're interpreting someone else's story and presenting it to people. And it's really difficult to do that in a way that someone else is going to receive it and find it engaging without finding a way to try and put yourself in that person's shoes or in that perspective. So I think as a whole, it's kind of just taught me to do that more in general.
Stick to the facts, essentially.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow.
So I think that's one of the important parts about studying history, is broadening your perspective and understanding that, we're all imperfect people. And, even people that do great things are still imperfect in their own way. And we're all products of our own time. And so being able to hold loosely our ideals of what makes someone maybe a good or successful person and allow people to sort of exist in their era, I think is an important thing, but it's also challenging.
Definitely, because I think I don't think you're ever going to look at anyone in history and do research on them and then not find something you don't like about them.
Yeah.
Or like something you don't like that they did. And I think that can be applied to present day. There's plenty of people that are my friends or people I love who they are, but there's something about them where I'm like, oh, I wish you didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, or something.
I totally fit that bill. Yeah.
I think everyone can experience that. And I think like people always say, oh, like we look at history, like so we don't repeat the past and stuff or whatever. But it's not even just that. I think it's also, it can teach us so many things, like I think it's kind of awkward sometimes when you're like analyzing people very deeply who are presently existing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you go back and do that in the past, you can find the ways to apply that to present day. So I think that's nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of present day, gotta tell us a little bit. And this extraordinary human being that I have yet to meet, and I've only heard about how many excursions he's taken on this Menorcan Walk of Fame here. Yeah. Talk about Ryan and his journey, and tell Amanda all about this.
Yes.
Yeah. So Ryan is, out of our staff right now, he's the staff member there who's been the longest. So he's seen the museum go through a lot of its different eras as the museum, because he's been there, I think he hit his 6-year mark in March.
Oh, that's
That's
awesome.
what it was. He definitely got very involved. He was learning a lot about Menorcan history, and we have a Menorcan tie at our museum because the first owner of the museum, his wife, Juana Pellicer, was Menorcan. Her father, Francisco Pellicer, was one of the leaders of the Menorcans coming up from New Smyrna to St. Augustine. And Ryan came up with probably the craziest, but one of the most wonderful projects. He decided he was going to recreate the walk from New Smyrna to St. Augustine.
Can you imagine?
It's like 70 miles.
With like the straws right here. It's like real
Camelbacks.
intense. Yes, they're amazing.
The first year
What sunscreen does he use?
Oh my gosh, yeah. The first year he did it, he came back and he put his backpack on the ground. And I think one of us went to lift it to just move it somewhere. And we were like, this is what you were carrying on your back?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how much does this weigh?
Oh, yeah. He's like, I work out once a year.
Once.
I think
kidding.
the first time he did it was November of 2022. And then he just did it again in March. But it's a 70-mile walk. And he did it, it was bringing awareness to Menorcan heritage and their history and all of that. But he was also doing it as a fundraiser for the museum.
Which is awesome.
Which is really great. And I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's around $12,000 or so that he's raised for the museum doing this. And that's all going towards preservation of the house. We're a coquina structure. Coquina's not an easy thing to come by.
God bless your mind.
Let it happen. And it definitely takes a lot of, you have to have a certain care for coquina. You can't just like do whatever with it. So that'll go towards a lot of the preservation of the rooms. We also need to do a lot of work on the windows and the chimneys and the lime wash. Like we've got a lot of stuff lined up that we need to do preservation wise.
Yeah.
So that really meant a lot to the museum that he did that as a fundraiser. So that was really great. And he's just a prime example of staff dedication at the museum.
Absolutely. Like
So,
employee of the month, at least for March, right? That was
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he needs a shoe sponsorship. We need to get him Nike like sponsored or something.
Yeah. And I think too, it's so great because his fiance Julia is at the museum also. And she was really great with promoting that, doing a lot of the marketing for that, helping with the fundraising. They were filming this year more interviews about Menorcan history and trying to create more of like a mini documentary about it. And she was able to put a lot of work in that. And they honestly were just such a great team on that. And they did so much work for so long on making that happen, both years.
I mean, the marketing behind it was amazing.
That happened.
It's such a great campaign.
So yeah, they both did an excellent job with that. Like that was
Do you know,
amazing.
is he going to walk again, do you think?
I don't know. Honestly.
God bless him. God bless him. It's not easy. I know.
I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to do it again. I
want to get him a shoe sponsorship. I want to get in on this.
If he would or not. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised. Or if not that exact thing, I wouldn't be surprised if he did something of a similar nature.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be curious to see how that looks in the future. There's that part of me that's like, I kind of want to try it. Like, I know, right? Like, I want to see if I could do it. And I don't know that I could do. I think that would be like a toxic trait of mine, thinking I could just go out and be like, I can walk it for 4 days. I can do it. But I do think it would be cool if he did it again. If we each maybe walked like a few miles of it also.
That'd be fun. Yes.
That would be interesting. And I think part of the goal this year, and especially with their documentary, the video they're trying to make about it, I think is to encourage people to try similar things. So we'll see.
Cool.
We'll see. Maybe I'll try and walk a day or something.
That would be fun.
So I love the newness that's going on at the museum. Can you talk a little bit about the new bilingual tours that are going on?
Yeah. So I don't remember when the first audio tour was implemented, because that would have been before I started working there. But we just had an audio tour on like a little like audio device, and you just have buttons, you push it in, whatever. It wasn't on your phone or anything like that.
Is it like an earpiece or something?
So it's like you would just like hold it up to your ear like a phone. You just kind of would punch
So
in
it
the
looks-
numbers.
I've seen these. They look like the little like pagers at restaurants. It looks like that, but it's a
Okay.
little speaker, and you
Okay.
would just hold it up to your
and
ear.
the tracks are loaded in there. If you're in room 1, you hit 1, play, listen to it. So we
Does
had
everybody
that.
around you hear that? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
So they're pretty quiet, and
Okay.
like most of the time you are kind of having to hold it pretty close to hear it. But the issue we realized is we only had 10, I think, of those. I think one was broken, so 9.
okay.
And so if we had a busy day and a bunch of them took people out, like took the devices out, then we didn't have any left.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the downside. Also, the company who made the devices went out of business. So we had no help with things like that. And a lot of us...
Don't order from Wish. You'll get them 6 years later, and they'll be like
Temu.
gigantic. And you're like, no one's holding that up at their
No
face.
AliExpress.
So a lot of us had been talking for a while of we needed to do something to update the audio tour, and we had all been going to museums where they had QR codes and people were just scanning and doing things on their
Right.
phones. And we said if we were using phones, you wouldn't run out of them if people were using their phones.
That's true.
But also we would have the opportunity with phones and with screens that people could click onto different things to maybe personalize it a little bit or give people a little bit more of the opportunity to choose exactly what information they wanted to absorb.
Mm-hmm.
So with the audio tour before, if you were listening to track 1, it was a little harder to see like, well, I'm listening to this in this room because I'm hoping they're going to talk about that thing in the corner, but I don't know if they're actually going to get to that.
Oh, I see what you're
type of
saying.
thing.
Okay. So this is more of like stationed. You go
And
station
it was
to station.
kind of long, and we realized like not everyone was wanting to listen to the full thing. So the conversation came up about doing a new audio tour and doing it on an app. And with the old one, there was English and Spanish. We were talking about doing the app, and we said with the app, people will be able to go in. We can have a little bit more concentrated the information per room. And then we could have extra information blurbs that people could click on if they wanted to hear more about something in the room. But it's not like you had to listen to all of that if you didn't want it.
That's cool.
And in that conversation, we realized we'd be able to do more things with the audio tour. And then we thought, we don't have to just do English and Spanish. Like if we want, we could do other languages. Spanish was really easy for us because our archivist at the museum speaks Spanish. So she was able to do that. And that wasn't hard to come by. And then we realized French would probably be a good one. Every now and then we would get some French speakers coming in. And then we happened to know someone who spoke Russian who offered to do a translation if we ever wanted it. And then one of the people who worked at the museum, her family spoke German and she spoke German. So we were like, okay, we could do that. And we happened to get a grant that was going to help us with the audio tour. So that's how we were able to afford doing all of this and doing the different languages and such. So because of that, we decided to do French, German, and Russian as well as English and Spanish. And recently, like I think over the weekend, is technically when the newly edited Spanish was fully finished and re-uploaded into the app. So right now we have English and Spanish both in audio, but then if you're doing it on the phone, you can read the text as well.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So yeah, that's there too for people who'd prefer that. And then the French, I actually today got it fully published.
Congratulations.
So you can see the text. We don't have the audio for the French. We just have the text, and then probably by the end of the month, if not the end of the summer, I'll probably have the German and Russian text. The audio will be the trickier part because God bless Julia, she is putting in all of our audio. She doesn't speak all of these languages.
Oh my goodness.
So the audio is already recorded for her, which is nice, but I'm sure sitting there and editing and making sure everything matches up perfectly and is great is obviously going to be a difficult
challenge,
experience.
yeah.
Just editing the English was a lot. So I would assume she's not going to have to do too many edits because we had the other people already record it in the language. But that I think is going to take longer to get the audio in. So who's to say how long it's going to take, but we'll definitely have at least the text of the French the German and the Russian
It's such
in
a
there by
great
the end of
perk for a
summer.
museum.
Yeah.
That's such a big tourist, driven, right? I think there's a great
Absolutely.
benefit
So
to this.
we were in Gatlinburg in October and we went to the Titanic Museum.
Oh.
And that was the first time I had been to a museum that had this like fully independent audio tour of the
Okay.
museum.
What'd
So
you
there's
think?
like numbers everywhere.
Was it on your phone?
Yeah. Well, they have little devices that you listen
Oh,
to.
they had the
And so-
restaurant devices.
Yeah, and so you like point it at the number
Okay.
and then it starts in on the story. And so you're looking at the object that it's telling you. It was super cool.
Some major
And
art museums are like that too.
yeah,
Like,
I got way more out of it
Oh.
doing something like that. So I'm so excited that
It's like meeting the
Yeah.
people at their terms and like
Yeah.
learning at their like pace.
yeah,
okay.
absolutely. And also you get like the cool little stories behind this picture.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that picture is there of that person boarding the Titanic, but why is it there? I don't
Yeah.
know who that person
Yeah.
is.
And it's nice too, because I've noticed a lot of museums are making that transition. Like it's not just us. I mean, that's kind of what inspired us to do it, is that we were seeing other people were doing it. But the other thing too that's nice is we've noticed there were certain things about in the museum that we always got asked questions about. Like when people would come back to the gift shop after, what's that big red thing on the wall in that one room? So we're like, okay, that's going to be an extra information blurb on the audio tour. So it's always there.
You knew,
So
yeah.
it made it nicer where we could do that, where it didn't have to be worked into the audio they're listening to, because that way they're not just sitting there hoping that it's going to be talked about. They'll see it on the app and go, oh, I wanted to know what this is. I can just click on it and read real quick what it is.
Yeah.
So it's nice that we can do that as well.
So what is the number one question that people ask you time and time again on every tour?
So as far as items go in the house, the big red thing on the wall is one of them, which is why I said it, and that would be our hat tub.
Okay.
There we have a wineskin in the corner, which looks like it was a pig.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
what it looks like, but without the head. That's like a huge question of what is that? And then I think we also get asked a lot, which is probably a good segue into one of the other things I wanted to talk about. We get asked a lot if the house is haunted.
Yeah.
That's like one of the biggest questions we get asked as well. So
I believe it, right?
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, we have to ask you.
I mean,
yeah, so it's funny because I always say to people when they ask, I'm like, it's going to depend on who you ask,
Yeah.
how they're going to answer the question. And also I have learned it really depends on people's personal experience, where we've had people go on a tour, come back in the gift shop and be like, this place has to be
Has to
Yeah.
be.
like, I just felt this, that, and whatever.
A chill.
And then you have so many people where they'd go through and you would mention something about it being haunted and they're like, okay, sure. So it's like, it just kind of depends, I think, a little bit on everyone's experience. I know I get asked on the student tours a lot, and I go, if you want it to be haunted,
Yeah, right.
and if you don't want it to be, then it's not.
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
actually.
I just don't want to, ruin like any parent's idea of how the day was supposed to go.
Right. I know. God bless. Yeah.
So yeah, usually that's my answer there. But we do host, it's once a month, we host paranormal investigations at the museum. So we have one member of our staff who's there, and then we work with another company in town, the Odd Macabre.
I love them. They're so
Yeah.
cool. They do great things.
Yeah, they're so
Yeah.
nice. And they come together and do the paranormal investigations. So basically, Hannah is there. She's our staff member. She's there kind of just to keep an eye on the museum, be the person representing the museum, give a little bit of the history so people know what's going on, making sure people know how they're supposed to behave in the museum, all those fun things. And then Heather from the Odd Macabre, she's there, and she's the one more leading the investigation, and she has the equipment that she brings and
Like
everything.
Ghostbusters equipment?
So I'm not going to remember all the names of everything they use, but they have like a little REM pod,
Okay.
like K2 meters. Sometimes they'll pull out some dowsing rods. I think they try to avoid doing the same thing on every single one, so that
Okay,
if
makes
people
sense. Yeah.
come back, they can experience different things.
Mhm.
I did 2 of the paranormal investigations. I did one a couple years ago, and then I did one, I think last year. I think it was last year that I did another one, and I brought some people with me, so I did get to see them. And I will say, I'm not a person who's like gone in the house and been like, oh my gosh, I saw this spirit in front of me. That was not something I was gifted with.
Yeah.
I'm, like,
You don't have that
sensing-
third eye
I'm
moment.
like
yeah.
sensing those things. Hannah, otherwise, she probably has a book full of stories. Heather as well. I will say for me personally, the couple things that I thought were interesting the first one I did, the one thing I can say I experienced myself that I was like, this is different and I don't know how to explain this, is we went upstairs and we went into the owner's parlor. And the second I stepped into the room, it felt like someone had just like dropped a weight plate on my chest. Like it was so hard to breathe. And then Heather was like, does anyone sense anything in this room? And someone else was like, it's kind of hard to breathe. And I was like, oh, thank God I'm not dying. I was like, it's hard for me to breathe too. And that feeling did not go away until I left the room. So that was the first moment that I experienced something where I was feeling something that I didn't really know how to explain.
You weren't in control, yeah.
That
was just
wild.
kind of like a strange feeling for me. And then there were definitely things where like the REM pod was beeping and going off, and it only goes off when something touches it, and no one was in that room, and it was going off. So there were little things I witnessed where I'm like, okay, well, clearly something's going on here. But I think what was most interesting for me is that sometimes this has been going on for years that we've been doing investigations, and we've had so many different people come from so many different cities, end up coming to the house and then say they're experiencing the exact same thing that someone else has mentioned before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that to me, I think was the first thing that I heard where I was like, well, clearly like something's happening in the house, because we don't advertise those things. Like on our website, we say what the paranormal is, what they are going to be doing, but we don't have anywhere listed, oh, these are the stories that people have experienced.
Oh, right,
or
right.
like, these are the spirits you could encounter. Like, we don't have that anywhere. The Odd Macabre doesn't have that anywhere, unless possibly someone were to have left a review and said something and someone has seen it. But we've had, an example would be, we've had multiple people come, and we have a cheval mirror in our owner's bedroom, which is this big mirror that's one of the very few items we have in the house that was actually owned by one of the owners of the house.
Oh, wow.
And they let people do mirror scrying, which I guess the idea behind mirror scrying is you essentially sit in front of the mirror for like 5 minutes or whatever it is, look in the mirror and see what you see.
Don't do Bloody Mary.
Don't do
I
that.
saw Candyman. Don't do that either. Yeah. Oh.
No. So I guess you just sit there and you see what you see, but multiple people have all described seeing like the same male figure, like this older male, like glasses, hat, whatever.
You didn't tell me this last interview. I need to come and do this.
Creepy.
Yeah, so people will say this, or people will mention smelling, I think it's like cigar smoke or leather in that room. And it's multiple people, though.
It's not my favorite.
Multiple people, though, have said this. And I'm thinking these are people who are coming to the house over years of time on different days, coming from different cities, completely different and random people. And they're saying they're having these same experiences.
Yeah.
So that I think was interesting. And then if you were to talk to someone like Hannah, who does the paranormal investigations every month, she was gifted with more of those abilities and is more in tune with that side of things. And she will say like, oh yeah, like I had a conversation with Madison or something.
Oh,
and it's like,
yeah, Maddie, huh?
yeah. And it's like, we'll be saying like specific people's names and things like that. So it's definitely interesting. I think what I would probably, the thing I would say is probably the best about it from what I've seen with other maybe ghost tours or paranormal investigations or whatever, is that when Heather and Hannah lead it, they leave so much up to you, where when Hannah gives that brief history in the beginning, she doesn't even say all the owners' names because she doesn't want to put a name in your head. Like if you think you hear a name or something later. Yeah. So it's very vague information of like, this is what the house is. Don't touch anything. Don't sit here. Don't whatever.
Sounds like my child.
And like,
can relate.
Yeah. Sit down,
David.
Like,
laying out kind of, okay, we're going to start by doing this. Then we're going to move into this room. Then we're going to sit here and do this. And it's very much like, say Heather were to pull out the spirit box and they were to hear a voice. She will not say what she heard. She will ask everyone else what they heard first. So it's really putting it into the guests' hands, I guess, of what they're experiencing. So I think the reason we are okay with doing it, because for a lot of museums, that's definitely not the most comfortable thing. Should we be letting a random group of people in here at night doing this or whatever? And I think part of the reason we agreed to do it is because we know everyone at the Odd Macabre is so respectful of the house, but also respectful of the history. And they're not just going to go in and tell all these random ghost stories just to get people excited. They are going to try and stay with our history. They're also very respectful of the property itself.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, I think we're okay with the fact that they are putting it so much into the guest hands of what they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not telling them, we're going to go in this room and you're probably going to see the ghost
Right,
of
the
Dr.
lead
Peck.
on, yeah.
Like, it's not that. It's like, okay, we're going to go in this room. Now tell me what you feel.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do like that aspect of it, where I feel like they're not putting things into people's heads on the forefront of it.
Like an organic approach or something.
Yeah. And at the end, obviously, if you have questions, or it's like, oh, I was listening to this and I think I was on the spirit box. I think I heard someone's name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Is this the name you heard? Yeah, that's what I heard. Da, da, da. So it's like they'll help you out a little in ways and stuff, but I think it definitely makes it feel more authentic for the visitors, which is nice. So yeah, and it's also, it brings a different audience to the museum. So
is there an age limit
cool
on those?
I think
That's
they might have. I think they updated it. I think it used to be 16 plus, and now I think they do 18 plus.
Okay.
And I think part of that, to my understanding, is just of going through the house at night or letting people use equipment and stuff. You just want to make sure no one breaks anything. So
right. When I get scared, I cuss. So like, it's probably a good thing to make it 18. You know, like, oh geez, I don't want the 14
so
either.
I think it's just been updated, so now it's 18 plus.
Yeah.
Does can you ask the question?
Yeah, so we have a question from one of our viewers, and he wants to know, do you have ASL interpreters for the hearing impaired?
Oh, actually, that's one thing I forgot to mention with the audio tour. We actually had ASL interpreters come and record ASL for us, so we'll be able to put that on the audio tour as well.
Very cool.
That idea came from us because someone reached out to us from the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind and wanted to do a tactile tour. And they were saying, obviously, most museums, a lot of house museums, you can't even go in the room. Like, they have it roped off and you just stand outside of it.
You look through the doorway.
And that's not a really exciting experience for someone who can't hear or see.
No, Hemingway House, I was not impressed. That was Hemingway Keys. I was not impressed.
It's really hard. And obviously, we tell people not to touch things. There are a few items here and there where it's okay to touch if we're the one to pick it up and be like, you can put your hand on this or something. So they reached out and asked if they could do something. And we ended up having to get a couple interpreters to do that. And we did the tactile tour, I think once or twice. And then it was kind of inspired of, oh, let's see if we can do that with a new audio tour, something with a phone where you can have a screen, we can have ASL. And I think I'd have to ask Julia, I'm pretty sure that's all edited and done. So I think that should be going into the audio tour probably this summer.
That's
I
fantastic.
would assume, because I think that's all edited and good to go. And I think our goal too in the future is we'd love to do something, if we could get something with Braille or something to go through the museum as well. I think that's obviously going to take some time and probably some like looking at grants and things or whatever to get that to happen. But we do offer, I think there should be something on our website for it, but we do offer ASL and tactile tours if someone requests it.
That's great.
Okay.
How long are the tours?
So roughly an hour. If you were to do the audio tour, if you were to listen to every track in full, it's about 45 minutes because there's that extra information to read. If you wanted to take longer, you easily could. With the audio tour, if you really just wanted to get the quick snippets of each room and go through in 20 minutes, you could. And then our guided tours that are led by any one of us docents, those are probably more like an hour, sometimes a little bit longer if you have people with lots of questions or like a larger group, but usually about an hour.
Were you worried about how like technology was taking over some of the docent jobs? Like sometimes that's the thing with AI. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because I feel like in the last week especially, I've been hearing so much stuff about AI and jobs and all of that. And I think when it comes to us as a museum, I'm not super worried because one of the biggest compliments that we get is based on our staff's personalities at
Love
the
that.
museum.
Good.
And I think one of the things that sets us apart is we get so many compliments all the time of like, oh, we can tell you guys actually really care. Or like, we
It's
can
the
tell
truth.
you're actually passionate about it. So that's always nice to hear. And even when we look at our reviews, those are some of the best things that we see that people are saying. So I don't like, not to pat myself on the back, but I don't think I can be replaced in that way by AI.
I love that.
Good. Name it and claim it.
Know your
Yes.
worth. Know your
I
worth.
don't think any of us really can. We have all of us I think the thing too that's so nice is we obviously have a tour script, but we all have our own tour.
Mhm.
So we have the key points of like, okay, you have to mention who the owners are on the
Yeah.
tour. Like that's something
Mhm.
you can't exclude, but everyone's tour is going to be a little different.
Mhm.
So if you were to take a tour with me and then you were to go take a tour with Ryan, you would not have the same experience.
Yeah.
So that is pretty nice. And then also I think it's different when asking questions. I think it's better to get a more personal answer. And I've definitely had it before. I think we all have, where we've given a tour and then we've had people stay in the gift shop for like 30, 40 minutes after the tour was finished,
Mhm.
just asking questions, learning either more about us, about St. Augustine, about the house, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I don't think AI will give that same
In
experience.
a warm,
Yeah.
beautiful manner. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do think where the threat maybe could be is something of maybe the amount of work we physically were putting into creating something like an audio tour. Maybe in the future, I could see that being a job that might be replaced where people are like, oh, well, we can just have like AI do it or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's like that would maybe make me a little nervous in some of those sense where maybe some of the more technical stuff or like background stuff. But I think the physical, I'm a person present giving a tour, or also not everything, like I don't know how it would work with archives and things being digitally backed up and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff where it's like we're going and we're reading through a diary and then we're like, wait, I think we found so-and-so's birthday. It's like someone's got to be there, I think, to really go through that. And like maybe if you really wanted to take the time to try and upload everything perfectly online and then have AI scan it to create a new tour,
right.
I'm sure one day possibly that's going to happen. But I feel like we're doing such a good job
I
with
think
it.
so
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And like creating different tours and different experiences, because I think that's one of the things I love at the museum
Mhm.
is like 5 years ago we were a museum that had one tour and the exhibits in the house didn't really change, nothing really moved,
Mhm.
the hours weren't even super consistent, and then here we are now where we're offering over 10 different programs and events every
Yeah.
year with a full calendar of events, constantly changing exhibits in the house and doing different tours. And I don't know if it would be possible in the way that we're doing it, because someone has to present all those different tours and programs. I just don't know if it would be possible
Mhm.
Mhm.
in that way. Or also for a museum that's small like us, part of the thing that makes us unique is the people that work there and the conversations you're having. Maybe if there was a really, like I'm thinking really large museums, part of the reason you don't get that personal experience is not because they're not knowledgeable or don't want to give it to you, but if you're at a museum where you have thousands of people come in
Right.
every day,
Yeah.
you have to give the tour and then go and give the next tour.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I could see maybe unfortunately AI kind of coming in on that a little bit.
Yeah.
If it is something where they're kind of just like pumping out tour after tour after tour, I would hope not,
Yeah.
because I do think the personal experience is better in my opinion.
Well, humans
but
connect with
that's
humans, so yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
yeah, but that's maybe where I could see it coming into play in the docent role, is at a bigger
Mhm.
like museum or something.
Mhm.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that even my youngest, all of my kids, they all really connected to the event that we went to.
Yeah.
And, we had a lot of really great conversations about what we had just seen and the stories we had just learned in that presentation, the different items in the room. So absolutely, you don't get that connection. You don't get that heart change
Mhm.
when you're just listening to a device. I feel like you really
Yeah.
need that connection.
Especially with history, with what we were saying earlier about so much of it is trying to place yourself in
Mhm.
someone else's shoes. And I think also be a little bit more empathetic or sympathetic to someone else's situation and
Mhm.
have that broader perspective. I think because if it was the Isle of Tears Wall tour, I think is what you
Mhm.
said you'd seen, that is a tour especially where the reason we find it so successful is we're having reenactors play these roles of enslaved individuals. And truthfully, if I were to stand there and give you an hour lecture about slavery, I mean, I'm sure you would learn something. I would hope you'd learn something, but I don't think you would connect to the story in the
No.
same way is seeing these two reenactors actually get into character and play the part of what it would really look
Mhm.
like
Powerful.
to be an enslaved person or have those emotions when different things were happening.
Mhm.
So it's like, I can still give you the information. Like I could sit here and I've heard it so much, I probably have so much of the script memorized.
Mm.
I could probably tell you everything that happens and you'd probably pick up on a thing or two, but I don't think you'd really be connected to
Right.
that
Yeah.
story. And I think seeing James and Charmin do the reenactment and really get you connected, like people are brought to tears on that tour. And I don't think me giving a lecture about it is going to bring people to tears.
Right. Well, you never know. You never know how your inflection or your delivery. You never know.
Right.
Those French tours can get real romantical, I'm just saying.
Yeah, you never know. So I do think, though, that especially when you're talking about people and you're talking about their history and you're talking about their stories, you do have to have some sort of personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? I mean, however many years from now we could have like conscious AI who is doing that or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think at least presently right now, I don't think there's a form that's going to be able to get people that connected in a way. So yeah, I think the personal experience is really just the best experience.
Speaking of connection, like how is your connection with the locals in St. Augustine and St. Johns County? Are you seeing more of an influx of just tourists on the board, or are you seeing locals trickle in as well?
Definitely locals as well. I think one of the things that's nice is we've started doing more community events.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of free events as well as our different tours and programs. So something that we do every month, we stay open for First Friday Art Walk that happens downtown.
Yeah.
So we usually have, I would say, somewhere in between 5 to 10 vendors usually set up in our lawn, and we'll stay open till about 9. Have the vendors there, and then we'll leave the gift shop open as well. Mm-hmm. So we pretty much do that every month as long as...
Doesn't the museum have like a huge history with the St. Augustine Art Association?
Yeah.
So there's something that's in tangent right there, right?
Yeah, so the St. Augustine Art Association 100 years ago this year was founded on the Ximenez-Fatio House property.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that cool?
That is really cool.
Last year is the first time we really did something with them for an exhibit in the house. We did our art and history exhibit. So we had 14 different artists decorate all 14 mantel places in the house for Christmas.
That's cool.
So that was really cool because, oh my gosh, it just made the house feel so much nicer at Christmas because we've always decorated for Christmas. But one of the things that we struggled with in the past few years is the town is so busy during Nights of Lights. And we couldn't quite figure out how to get people to the museum because we tried doing candlelight tours because we do that in October. But there's definitely a really strong appeal for being in an old house at night in the month of October.
Yeah.
And so we do our mortality and morning tours then. But at Christmas, trying to do the nighttime tour, we're like, but people are trying to go see the lights at that point.
Yeah.
Like they want something to do before the lights come on. And for a while, it was like, what can we do besides just having like the Christmas tree and the Christmas decorations forever? And I can't even remember whose idea it was originally to do the thing with the art association. But that was great. And then this year, in honor of it being the 100th anniversary, the theme for this year we're going to do, it's going to be 100 years of music is the theme for the artists.
That is so great.
And I think the Art Association has already posted that they're taking applications for artists to apply to be one of the mantles.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll tag them in this right now so we get that out.
Great.
That'll be really exciting to do that again this year. So definitely so that's one of the ways we're connecting with someone else in town, doing the First Friday Art Walk.
And that exhibit lasted a long time. It was not just done Christmas Day. No, it lasted for another month.
I think we had it was the Night of Lights weekend, so like November 18th-ish or whatever it was, we were originally only going to go through January 6th, and then we ended up extending it.
That's right.
So then we went through, it's like January 20-something.
I think the 29th they ended the lights. I think that's when you guys were like, that makes sense.
We ended up doing it for, it was like about 2 months that we had the exhibit. And I think we're probably going to do that again this year, have it for about 2 months. Probably start the same weekend that Night of Lights is starting, and then probably go through like mid-January or end of January.
I got to tell you, in the art community, a lot of people were buzzing about this because it looks really cool. Like they had like their own artistic interpretation of each of the fireplaces. It looked it just was really well done.
It was so cool. And we did have a few people who've come in now who saw it last year and are like, oh, I want to apply to do it this year.
Good. So that's awesome.
That
that's
was
a good pulse.
Cool. And I think probably our other two big community events would be one thing we also started for the first time last year. Our director came up with the idea of doing a book festival in September. Is kind of like a back to school thing, and we did that over 3 weekends. I think
like
this year.
Writers Festival or something. Yeah, it was great.
I think we're only going to do it for 1 weekend this year because it was a lot. It's obviously very hot in September still. So we're probably just going to do 1 weekend. But that idea was kind of coming off of again, inspiring. We're constantly pulling things just from the different types of people who stayed at the museum. We had an author who had stayed at the museum, Constance Fenimore Wilson. She had published a story called The Ancient City, and it was kind of inspired by her stay in St. Augustine. She mentions the house in the story. So we thought, oh, that's cool, because there were so many artists and writers coming down to Florida. The environment down here is so different. You're getting inspiration with most of our guests coming from up north. So we were looking at that, and we're like, okay, let's try and connect something with that. Our director, Payson, she thought of the idea with the book festival. Basically, she was like, we can have local authors and people come out, set up tables, have their books, do a little thing. We can have a couple authors come and talk, and then we should do a specialty tour in the house inspired by Constance Fenimore Wilson staying. And I think that was the first thing in my new position that I was really tasked with as like a challenging project, because I will say the reason we have like James and Sharman and stuff come in for I Lived Here as well, the biggest reason is because they are actors, like they can do that.
Yeah.
So many great things about our staff. We're not actors, and like I can do it, but it's not where I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out how to do the tour, because one of our former staff members, she had actually written a script with Constance Fenimore Wilson, a fantastic script. But we were all looking at it, and I'm like, I can't play any of these parts.
Except for me, honey, yeah.
I was like, it's
My
gonna
lady
be.
of the night.
I was like, it's gonna be so awkward watching me try and like do this character or whatever. I was like, that's just not. It's not gonna be me. But we were thinking, we're like, how can we still do something? Because that idea was so great, and the script was so well done. We're like, we need to do something. So then, what I ended up doing is, I was so happy I had this idea because I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I did the tour as a perspective as if we were a servant in the house who was working at the house when Constance stayed. And we became like a super fan of Constance Fenimore Wilson. So then we had the guests come in. We actually let them come through the original front door of the museum, which typically that's not where you would start a tour. You just go through the courtyard. Did that, talked to them as if they were prospective guests coming to see the house to decide if they wanted to stay.
It's like interactive. This is cool.
Yeah.
But the thing that made it so easy is when I was explaining what the rooms are, I just made everything first person.
Okay.
So I think that made it easier for all of us to do the tour, because instead of being like, this is our soldier's room, the reason we would have a soldier stay here is because, on the tour, we would just say, oh, this is where an officer's staying. He's staying here because.
Yeah.
So we just kind of made it sound present. And then to work in the stuff with Constance, we kept a copy of the book, and so we didn't have to memorize lines. Just opened the book, and we're like, I want to read you a passage from the book of how she talks about the house, and then just read the paragraph how she talked about the house.
Cool.
So
this is awesome.
we were able to work that in there, and so many people, I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like, so many people were like, oh, that was such a cute tour. That was such a nice little thing. And I don't know necessarily if that's what we'll do again for the book festival this year, because I do think we ended up having so many more people come to the museum who wanted to tour the house that day than we were expecting with the book festival. And to do that tour multiple times in the day would be a little difficult. So I don't know if we'll end up doing that again or not, but we might. But with the book festival, that was kind of a cool thing, because we had, I think, a lot more people too than we expected on all 3 weekends.
Are they only historic books, or can they be?
So I don't know if we're going to do the same like theme for it this year.
We have a buddy that just released the book, so we're really excited. Yes, I'm so excited for you, Trey.
I think last year, our criteria was local, like being a local author.
Check.
We got a local author.
I'll see what our criteria is going to be this year, and we'll definitely post stuff about it. So that'll be cool. And then I think our other big community thing is we do our trick or treat festival in October.
That's fun.
So that's super fun. We basically have someone standing at all the doors of the museum so kids can go and trick or treat. And then we have some different games set up in the yard. So that's fun. And those things, the first Friday, the book festival, and the trick or treat festival are all free events that we do. And that's nice, because I think that's where we get a lot of locals. But that's where we get a lot of locals to come back to our other events, is when they come to those free things. And we're like, oh, come back next month, because then we're going to do this tour or whatever.
And they love the experience. And it was like, I want to go back.
It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
And I think we also usually, like the trick or treat festival, it's so busy that day. We usually don't do tours in the house. So that's another time where people come and then they actually see the house for the first time and are like, oh, it would be cool to tour that. And we're like, oh my gosh, come back tonight. We have openings on Mortality and Morning.
Yeah.
So,
You're like, oh, what a fun entrance.
So
funny you mentioned that.
So yeah, whatever it is. So I think that's one of the biggest things that helps us draw in the local audience is by doing the community events. And I think it's nice too, because most of us who work at the museum also go and attend other things happening in the community a lot. Mm-hmm. So I think we have good communication with the other people around, which is nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We know Renee from Totally St. Augustine, and so we always get all of the greatest, the latest, everything from her. Of course, everybody out there follows Totally St. Augustine, and feeds us with all these great events.
I have one little question that I want to ask.
Oh, yeah.
So anytime you work someplace, you always you find something that nobody knows, right? Like some little thing that's your favorite that's just not on the tour. Do you have like a favorite object or a favorite little anecdote, or what's your favorite little like secret piece of information?
That's such a good question. And it's funny because, of course, while you're asking me, I'm not going to be able to think of the answer. And then tomorrow someone's going to come to the museum and I'm going to say it to them. And I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I should have said this last night.
That's why we have the comment section. So you just go back and put it in comments.
I have to think because I will say, I think not even so much always about the house, but I do notice, I think especially because I went to college here in St. Augustine, and I was so great. Like, I'm so grateful I had so many professors who actually used St. Augustine as a resource for our learning and stuff, that I sometimes find on tours, people will mention like some random thing in town, and then I'll be like, I actually know all about that. Like I did a field trip there. So it's like, it's always so random that I feel like it comes up. But yeah, if I think of something more specific about the house, I'll definitely have to put it in the comments.
Yes.
But I do think sometimes it is really random where someone just points at something in a room that it's like that person asks about twice a year.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to tell you about this. We never talk about this because no one asks.
That's great.
I definitely think it's always random. But I'm sure as soon as I leave this building, I will think of exactly the thing that I tell people that I'm like, that's what I should have said.
Well, our show is on Facebook on St. Augustine this evening.
Yeah.
Find us.
You're tagging it. I got you, Emily. So tell everybody where they can find out for more information on all the tours, all the wonderful things of the museum. Where can people go?
Yes.
So I would say our social media is probably what is staying the most up to date. So I think we're just the Ximenez-Fatio House on everything. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I would say our Instagram and Facebook probably are what's getting most frequently updated about upcoming events and such. However, we do have our website and we update stuff on there as well. And that's where you would go if you wanted to book tours. On our website, we do have a tours and experiences tab. And under that, that'll show our different tour types. Right now, that's going to be the everyday tour, or we'll have the paranormal that's coming up on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So if anyone was interested in that, they'd go to the tours and experience page on our website and then just click book tour and it'll pull up the page. I will say, I know for most people, I'm sure it'll be written down. I know Ximenez-Fatio House is not always the most fun thing.
For years, I've been frightened to interview you guys. I'm like, I can't say it. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if you just type in xfhouse.org, that works, and that just takes you to the website.
That's the way to go. I like it.
I'm going to try this.
Make it quicker. Yeah, I have a lot of people that, and like a lot of friends of mine, they'll just be like, oh, how's it at the X house? Or how's it at the X house? Because no one wants to say it. I'm like, it's fine.
It's fine. It is. It's very intimidating, but absolutely. Yeah. Over time, it's like a curated
I understand.
thing.
I do have people
xf.org does not take you there. Don't do that.
Okay. So then definitely have to type out Ximenez-Fatio House.
We put it in comments. They can click away. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so funny too, because people ask me all the time, they'll be like, oh, where do you work? I want to look it up. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to spell it for you.
Yeah.
Because if I say it, you won't find me.
Definitely give you a business card, pen and paper. Yes.
Emily, thank you so much for showing up and showing out tonight.
Much.
This was a great chat.
It's so nice to meet you.
Appreciate
thank you guys
this.
for having me.
It's an extraordinary museum, and I'm really glad that you gave us the full, whole-rounded aspect of the
It really is
Ximenez-Fatio
special.
House.
It's a special place to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm going to have to leave, so you're going to have to wrap up the show alone because the buttons are not working.
Yeah. All right. Well, no worries. Well, thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. Enjoying the great chat that we had with Emily from Ximenez-Fatio House. Again, check out Totally St. Augustine if you want to check out some more updates on all of their events coming up. We love you guys. I'll be back in the morning with the crew. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Love you guys. See you later. Bye, babes.